Welcome again to another video. Um, Continuing with the solution to the January 2024 paper. This is part B of question 1. In fact, question part B is related to part A. However, what we're going to be doing in this instance is just to do it from scratch, as if to say they are not related, right? So a two-story car park has a total of 1,020 parking spaces. At 6:30 hours, and at 6:30 in the morning, 1/30th of the 1,020 spaces are filled. During the next hour, no cars left the car park, but another 4/15 of the 1,020 spaces are filled. Determine the number of parking spaces that are not filled. So in order for us to find out the number of spaces that are filled, what we have to do is to find out that are not filled, is to find out the number of spaces that are filled, okay? And then we subtracted the number of spaces that are filled from the total, and then we would have got that answer. Okay, so let's go. So if at 6:30 we have 1/30th, and then in the other hour we have another 4/15th. So what we are going to be doing, we're going to be adding these two fractions. And in order to add fractions, what we are going to do, we are going to find a common denominator. And in this case, the common denominator is 30. 30, so 30 into itself goes 1 time. 1 times 1 will give us 1. Plus 15 into 30 will go 2. So 2 times 4 will give us 8. And so here we have 9 over 30, and that can be further broken down into a smaller fraction. So we know 3 can go into itself, and 3 also can go into 9, and 3 can also go into 30. Okay, so 3 into 9 will go 3 times, and 3 into 30 will go 10 times. So we have 3 over 10. So at 7:30, 3 over 10 spaces were filled. So if 3 over 10 spaces were filled, then it simply means that 7 out of 10 were not filled. How do we know that? We know that the whole is 10 because the denominator is 10. So if I say 10 over 10, so we know that the denominator 10 over 10 minus 3 over 10, because again, how do we know that? Because the whole is 10, right? So this is 1. So if we subtract that, we know when we have the two denominators being the same, we just subtract the numerator. So 10 minus 3 will give us 7. So 7 out of 10 spaces were not filled, right? So determine the number of parking spaces. So what we actually want is the number of parking spaces that were not filled. So we know 7 out of 10, the frac of the whole was not filled. So therefore, we can say 7 over 10 multiplied by 1,020. So here we have 0 will cancel 0, and then we simply multiply 7 times 102. So 7 2s will give us 14. So write down the 4 here. 7 times 0 is 0, so we add the 1, and then 7 1s 7. So therefore, at 7:30, so your answer for that one, at 7:30, 714 spaces were not filled. And again, if you realize, if you had watched the previous video, you would have seen where we got the 7 out of 10 being the remainder. So if you are in an exam, all you would do is to multiply the 7 over 10 times the 1,020, then you would have got the 714 spaces that were left. And that is how you would have approached that question. And then And the other part it says now, of the 1,020 parking spaces, 20% were on the top level. How many parking spaces are on the top level? So it means that we must now find 20% of 1,020. So 20% of 1,020, so it's 20 over 100 times 1, 2, 0. Okay? All right, so let's go. So we can simply cancel this 0. So this 0 will cancel this 0. This 1 will cancel this 1. So we have 2 times 102. So 2 times 102. So 2 2's will give us 4. 2 times 0 will give us 0. And 2 1's will give us 2. So that means 204 parking spaces were on the top level. So your answer for that one is 204. And that's how we would go about doing such a question. Okay, continuing with the question. And I hope you are understanding what we are doing here. So the last part of the question says that some of the spaces are reserved for monthly paying customers. The ratio of reserved spaces to non-reserved spaces is 5 to 7. Calculate the number of non-reserved parking spaces. So we want to look at the non-reserved. And remember now, the non-reserved is 5. The reserved to non-reserved is 5 to 7. But this 7 parts, right, represent is equal to non-reserved, and I'm just going to write NR, right? Now, what we are going to do, we know that the ratio, so in order, whenever we're doing ratio, we have 5 plus 7, so number of parts is equal to 12 parts. So we have 12 parts. So we want to know what fraction of 12 is 7. So we have 7 over 12 multiply by the number of total parking spaces, which is 1,020. So 7 over 12 of 1,020 gives us 595. Okay, so 595 was the space that is non-reserved. When you work this on your calculator, you're gonna get 594.9 something. No, so but you can't have a fraction of a space. So therefore, what you would have to do is to round up to 595. Okay, so that's how you would have got that answer. All right. So I hope you understood the question, and so whenever you get these questions, just simply read these questions, analyze them, and get the answer. Okay.